Welcome everyone to the Preschool Mindfulness Summit. I'm really happy to introduce Amy Saltzman. She was on our summit last year. She is a pioneer in the world of mindfulness and speaks all over the world, and is kind of like a visionary in the field of working with mindfulness with youth and children. She's the founder of A Still Quiet Place, and we have links to CDs and her books, which are great. And she's also kind of given us an audio that you can listen to after the summit if you wish. She's a holistic physician, and she works with children through to teens to help them manage stress and use mindfulness techniques. So thank you so much for joining us again, Amy. I really appreciate that.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Great. So let's just, we have some viewers that were on last year and lots of new viewers this year. So just tell us, first of all, how you define mindfulness and maybe what some misconceptions are about mindfulness.
Yeah, so I define mindfulness, especially when working with children and teens, but just in general, I define mindfulness as paying attention here and now. So doing our best not to obsess about the past or fantasize or worry about the future. Paying attention here and now with kindness and curiosity, because otherwise we beat ourselves up. Paying attention here and now with kindness and curiosity so that we can choose our behavior. So when I'm mindfulness with youth, and we'll talk about what preschool age children are really capable of doing, but the long-term goal is that they become aware of their thoughts and their feelings and their physical sensations, and then the people and circumstances around them so that they can choose how they interact with those people and circumstances.
Wonderful. Thanks for a very clear definition. So a lot of people ask, when we're talking about preschoolers, toddlers, like can they really practice mindfulness?
Well, that question just makes me smile because I actually feel like preschools and toddlers are very mindful, and there's a little bit of absurdity in us teaching them mindfulness. I think if we actually get down on the floor with them and go at their pace, they are quite mindful, and they're usually fully engaged in whatever they're doing till they're doing something else. So there is a little bit of hubris or arrogance in us thinking we're teaching them when really they're probably teaching us.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was in a coffee shop this morning, and there was a little, probably 18-month-old boy just obsessed with a straw for 30 minutes. He was just doing it, so engaged and focused on this straw. And I think, we have a lot to learn from young children. So
yeah, and that said, I would like to talk about what really do I feel young children are capable of in terms of mindfulness. And I think, first of all, working with the senses is super helpful. So what they can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. And then starting maybe to play with introducing them to internal sensing. So noticing if you have a warm feeling or a tight feeling in your chest, or even things like noticing if you feel hungry or full, they can start to turn inward. And then in terms of mindfulness practices themselves, at least to begin, my general rule of thumb is a minute for every year the child is old. So if you're working with a 4-year-old, at least, especially at first, I wouldn't have a practice be much longer than 4 minutes, a formal mindfulness practice.
Yeah, I think that's really important. They can't sit for, they don't want to sit for very long periods of time. So keeping it.
Yeah, and sometimes a child or a group of children, especially if they've had, support over weeks or months, can, but we also want them initially to feel a sense of success. So I also don't expect them to sit super still and, always have their eyes closed. Like, it's enough often just to share the practice with them and let our words and our intentions wash over them without making them be any particular way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important. I was just in Hong Kong visiting schools, and it was, we saw the little boy, just take the Hoberman spear by himself and just went in the corner, kind of in a quiet place, and was really practicing his breathing with nobody telling him to do it or anything. And it was, I thought that was, that's something that I would like to see more of in preschools, as sharing, and then letting the children take those practices when they want to use them,
Right.
rather than it being a circle time with 20 minutes of different things. And oh dear, sorry, that's my very loud doorbell. I'm just going to pause that. I'll have to cut that.
Fine.
Great. Okay, so maybe Amy, would you share maybe one or two practices that you think are really useful for teachers of preschool students or parents of preschool students to kind of start sharing with the younger ones?
Yeah, so we'll start with the first practice that I introduce kids to, and it's just actually lying down, if you have a rug area, closing your eyes, allowing the body to be still. And I like to give little like river stones for them to set on the belly buttons. So I'm going to say the practice now the way I would say it to young children. So you can take your stone, and maybe you want to just start with the stone in your hand, noticing the texture of the stone, whether it's smooth or rough, noticing the temperature. Maybe it starts out cool and starts to get warmer, feeling the weight of the stone. And then when you're ready, you can either lie down gently on the rug, or if you choose to sit up, just place the stone on your belly button and hold it there with your hand. And you can close your eyes. And if you're lying down, you'll feel the stone go up as you breathe in and down as you breathe out. And if you're sitting, you'll feel the stone and your hand move out with the in-breath and back with the out-breath. And see if you can feel the whole in-breath from the very beginning all the way through to where the breath is still, and the whole out-breath from the very beginning all the way through to where the breath is still. And now see if you can feel a still, quiet place between the in-breath and the out-breath, where the breath is still for just a second. And another still, quiet place between the out-breath and the in-breath, where the breath is still again. Now see if you can feel the whole cycle of the breath. Breathing in, stillness. Breathing out, stillness. And perhaps you can notice that this stillness is always with you when you're breathing in, when the breath is still, when you're breathing out, when the breath is still, when you're playing, when you're happy, when you're sad. This stillness and quietness is always inside of you, and you can find it just by following your breath. So when you're ready, take 3 slow, deep breaths. And if you're lying on the floor, gently stretch your legs, your arms, and roll to your side and sit up without banging into your neighbors. So there you go.
That was beautiful. Really lovely, and I can see if that would really resonate with young children, all the visionaries, visualization.
Yeah, and then it actually builds a foundation. So the intention of the still quiet place in introducing it as a felt sense in the body is for a lot of children and even some adults, like the idea of non-judgmental awareness is just kind of an idea, and it doesn't really mean that much. But if they feel the stillness in their body, that stillness and quiet is what I teach young kids, is that from your still quiet place, you can watch your thoughts and your feelings. And so still quiet place really is a synonym for kind of.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. So let's think about parents and how can parents kind of support that life skill of mindfulness in their homes, or for teachers maybe in their classrooms.
Yeah, well, I think the irony again is that, like, often as adults, we want the children in our lives to learn mindfulness because we want them to, I think, honestly, behave better.
Wow.
And so we're trying to teach them skills to have them behave better, when really the first and most important thing for us is to have our own practice so that we can respond to them rather than react. And when we learn to respond, like when a child, or when children are fighting, or when it's just a little bit crazy and chaotic, then we are teaching our children to do that. But so often we kind of want to put the cart before the horse and teach the children so that we feel more comfortable and at ease, rather than developing the skill for ourselves of feeling comfortable at ease and then sharing it with the children in our lives.
Yeah, so important. And I think it happens in all kinds of situations with teacher training. They want something and to go back and implement it the next day. But yeah, we need to do that for ourselves first.
Yeah, so I would definitely start with the adults developing their own mindfulness practice simply for their peace, ease, sanity, and joy, and then starting to share it with the kids. I had another thought, but it went away, so maybe it'll come back.
What about, we know teachers are very busy, parents are very busy, people that say, you know, oh, I just don't have time to learn how to do this. What do you think about any strategies for parents?
Yeah, I mean, and there's 2 parts to mindfulness. There's formal practice. There's actually sitting and bringing your attention to the breath or to the body or to thoughts or to feelings. And then there's informal mindfulness. So I actually was teaching a parents' evening at a local library, and the woman said, like, you know, how much do you have to practice to have it make a difference? And I said, I'm going to give you 2 answers. And the first answer is, like, if you now to brush your teeth mindfully every night. So pay attention to unscrewing the toothpaste and squeezing the toothpaste onto the toothbrush, and the motion of your hand and the taste of the toothpaste and the action of spitting. And you committed to doing your absolute best, to being in the moment and being present with brushing your teeth. That in and of itself would make a difference. And yes, your mind would wander to the kids' lunch and did I send that email, and then you come back to brushing your teeth. Like that in and of itself would literally change your life. And at the same time, if you want to be an adult who's sharing mindfulness with youth, then my own personal, and it's a little bit different to me for parents and teachers, so I'll do parents first. If you want to share mindfulness with your kids, the easiest way to do it is to use my CD or any of the other lovely CDs that are out there, and kind of build it into your bedtime routine. So read a book, brush your teeth, lie down with your kid in bed, and listen to a practice. And don't make it too heavy or tight. Like if they want to sit and play with their stuffed teddy bear and they're not lying perfectly still, it's still seeping in. So don't get too rigid about it. And then for teachers, I feel it's a little bit different. So, and you know, I might give preschool teachers a little leeway, but in general, my rule of thumb for teachers is if you want to be sharing mindfulness with other people's children in a kind of formal way, then you need to have an established daily practice. And you can work your way up to it, but if you're not willing to devote the time to the practice, then you probably shouldn't be sharing it with the students in your classroom. And I did think of the thing that I wanted to say. So the other thing that adults can do without formally teaching kids mindfulness is just doing what I call mindfulness out loud. So I'll give you just a simple example. I was taking my own kids when they were little to the park, but we had to stop at the post office first. I can't remember, but something actually really, truly had to go on that day. We got to the post office. The line was really long. I had gotten an upsetting phone call right before we got into the post office. My kids were didn't want to be in the line, and they definitely wanted to be in the park. And I was still a little rattled from the phone call. And I just and I said, you know, mommy's out of patience. It has nothing to do with you. And you just need to know that I'm completely out of patience now. And it was like, I was aware of what I was feeling. I was aware of kind of that agitatedness that might come out in something snarky at my kids. I gave them the information that they needed about where I was. I showed them that I can be agitated, be aware that I'm agitated without acting it out. And that, just doing that on a daily basis is more than enough.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And I think what we all get caught up and busy and things, and it's easy to forget to, to do those things and not say things that you'll regret later on to your kids. So I really love that mindfulness out loud strategy. So Amy, are there times when we shouldn't try to practice or bring up mindfulness with our young kids?
Well, it's interesting. And I think in the last series, we talked about mindfulness of emotions. And I don't know if we went over this or not, but actually there's a researcher named Paul Ekman who talks about emotional waves. And first of all, he describes them as this lovely bell curve, and we'll get back to the problem with that in a minute. But at the top of an emotional wave is something called the refractory period. And when any of us as human beings are in the refractory period, we're in our lizard brain and we're in fight, flight, or freeze. And when we're in fight, flight, or freeze, we can't really hear other people. We can't be creative. We can't be compassionate. We can't problem solve. We can't take other people's perspective. We're in survival mode. So it's so tempting as adults to, when our children are freaking out, to say, let's practice your mindfulness, just breathe. And to them, it's like they're already agitated. They're already in survival mode, and it's like being poked. So our job in that moment is not to get the child to practice mindfulness. It's for us to practice mindfulness and to ride the wave and just honestly wait till the wave passes. And then you can, talk about some strategies or choices, or, how did we find because the other thing is, eventually if kids are practicing mindfulness, you can get them to start to notice that place where they're going up on the wave. Like they forgot their show and tell, and their mom packed the lunch they don't like, and then the person they thought was their best friend said something nasty, and like all of a sudden, and it's like they can go back and see, oh, like that was the beginning of the wave, and right there I could have, like you said, you talked about the boy in Hong Kong, like I could have gone to the mindfulness corner because I noticed that my anger wave was starting to go up. And we can teach them that. But our job when our kids are having a huge emotional wave or emotional tsunami, our job is to be the calm one. So it's not about teaching them in that moment. It's about us responding with kindness to them in that moment.
Right. Yeah, I love that. Sometimes we want to do stuff to other people, and a lot of times I think we need to reflect back on ourselves and what we're doing and what we're projecting. And kids pick up everything we do, don't they? I mean, they're very observant.
Yeah, they do for sure. And there's this beautiful saying. There's this beautiful saying of one finger pointing out, three fingers pointing back. So when you think he just needs to use his mindfulness and calm down, it's like, no, I need to use my mindfulness and calm down. So when we're shoulding on someone else, usually we need to follow our own wise advice.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Amy. Do you have any just last words of advice for people watching that may want to find out more about mindfulness in young children?
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, I think if I got to say anything right now, like for kids and for teachers and for parents, it would be like, be gentle and kind and patient with yourselves. Like that's really the essence of mindfulness. And so when we start to force it, we're kind of doing something else. And then for people who want resources, I do have a children's CD that's just called Still Quiet Place Mindfulness for Young Children, that's available on Amazon. And for parents and teachers who really are committed to sharing mindfulness with youth, I have a book called A Still Quiet Place. Forgive me, the publisher gave me a really long title. A mindfulness program for teaching children and adolescents to ease stress and difficult emotions. And I also have an online course. So like for people who really choose that they want to take this on in a committed way, there are additional resources.
Great. Thank you so much, Amy. We'll have all the links to Amy's CD and books and her website where you can find out more about her courses. But I just want to say thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and expertise and coming on the summit and that beautiful practice that we did as well. So thank you once again.
And thank you for really providing great, easy opportunity for people to learn about sharing mindfulness with youth, like in the comfort of their own home, maybe even in their jammies with a cup of tea. Like there's, especially for busy parents and busy teachers, there's something very sweet about this format and way of bringing expertise, into someone's home in this way. So thank you for doing it.
Thanks, Amy. Talk to you later.